right, good evening, everyone. Alex Tanner here. Outlier Firefighters. This is Talkin' Shop with Outlier Firefighters, episode 18. I'm here with Anthony Kastros, Battalion Chief from Sacramento, California. I know, a little out of our normal window here in Illinois, and I'm really excited to have you, Chief. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight talking about a lot of stuff, so thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we've been green rooming, and I know that this is going to be a lot of fun tonight. So
Yeah.
let's just roll right into it. So your
Okay.
first exposure to the fire service, what was it?
My first exposure was my brothers. I was born in 1969, and my brothers were 15 and 18 years old when I was born. And the weird thing is, they're still 15 and 18 years older than me now. I never can catch up to those jerks. But they were in the fire service by about 1972. My brother Demetrius, I was 3 years old, and he's starting his fire service career at 18. He's a volunteer in Carmel, California, which is 1 square mile. It's on the central coast of California, about 2 hours south of San Francisco. That was my first exposure. I was about 3 years old, hanging out at the firehouse. And then my brother Mitch followed in suit, and they were volunteers for a few years in the early to mid 70s. And then Demetrius got on in 1976, his first paid career job. And so I spent a lot of my formative years in the Carmel Fire Department volunteer firehouse. And like I said, 1 square mile. We had two American LaFrance twin sister pumpers. They were awesome, 60s era open cab pumpers. There was an old Mack in the back. There was a utility rig and an old Cadillac ambulance that looked like 1969 Cadillac ambulance, looked like something out of Ghostbusters. And they were volunteers, and they were BLS, so they were all a bunch of EMTs. And I was there the night in 1975 they took possession of their newest rig, their 1975 Crown Telesquirt, which is a 50-foot telesquirt with the open cab and the big Crown front end, Johnny and Roy all the way. And so that was it, man. I was born into it, born and bred, and haven't had a chance to even look back and didn't want to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what better way to get exposure than family, right?
Well, and the other thing also, they were pyromaniacs. So Demetrius would light cardboard boxes on fire in my backyard, and I'd go put them out in my Tonka trucks. And literally, I would play with my Legos in the house, whatever, blah blah blah. He had this little bell, and he'd run in with this bell. If I heard that bell, I knew I had an alarm. And so I'd go running out. There'd be a big old header in the backyard. All these boxes are burning, and I'd sit there with my snorkel, my little Tonka snorkel that had a connector to the hose, and I had one SOG, man. It was basically one elevated master stream on everything. It was awesome.
Yeah,
And
that
so
is awesome.
That was it. And on top of that, later on, I got a second truck, and that was an open cab little Tonka, but it didn't have a waterway pre-plumbed like the snorkel did. So my brothers boosted some O2 supply tubing, and we ran a waterway up that. So then I had two rigs. That was my new SOG, two elevated master streams.
That's
And then
something else.
I brought back into service a 1953 Mack Tonka that my brother had. Actually, it's up in my office right here. I'll show it to you in a minute. But it was my brother's in the 50s, and now here I was in the 70s playing with it, and I called out my reserve rig. So it was parked behind the other truck in my little fire department in the backyard. And I brought that sucker out and put a garden hose on that, so they had three master streams. It was awesome, but I didn't save crap. There was no Rick James back then, man. It was no 2 out, no ICS even. It was just freaking surround and drown.
Hey, that's
It was
awesome,
great.
though.
I was
Laying that
drinking
all out
coffee
early.
at 6 years old. It was great.
Yeah, I definitely. We were talking a little bit before, about growing up kind of in a firehouse, and I do remember. Oh man, I was 13, I think, with the first cup of coffee, and it was like, "All right, kid, no, you don't get sugar, you don't get cream. That's not how this works. Drink this." And I don't think I drank
Exactly.
coffee for another 5 years after that because I was like, "Oh,
no, it ruins your gut. You're like, what the hell is that?
I know that
So,
firehouse coffee is something else, man."
Oh, you can clean parts with it. You can do all kinds of stuff. With it.
Yeah.
It's pretty
You
awesome.
stripping paint with that stuff.
Strip
for
and
sure.
paint. Yeah.
So then your career path? So where did you start? How did you end up, where you are now?
So I turned 18 years old, and like my two brothers before me, I signed up to be a volunteer at Carmel Fire Department, and I was a volunteer there for 3.5 years, and rode the next generation BLS ambulance, and Carmel's a kind of an affluent town in Central California, so a lot of elderly calls, hip fractures, falls, a lot of cardiac, a lot of strokes. So you actually got pretty good experience. And once in a while, we had a pretty decent fire in town, so it was pretty awesome. But man, that was just I just hung out there all the time, you know. And then I was going to school, getting my I got my MT early, and then running all those calls and building some experience. And then I started volunteering at another department down the street, which is both of them at the same time. So the other one was called Mid Carmel Valley Fire Department, and that was about 5 miles away from Carmel. A bunch of little volunteer departments all over each other. And so I was volunteering at two departments at the same time, going on strike teams in the summer. So for those of you in Illinois, a strike team is where you go on big fires,
Yeah.
big ass fires that burn the mountains like Maui.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But yeah, so then I got my first paid career job in Sacramento, California, in a little fire district called Florin Fire District. It was 6 stations, and I thought I won the lottery. And I was like, oh my God, they're paying me to do what I was volunteering to do. And I thought I was happier than I could ever have imagined. And it was amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it all kind of started.
Oh, it's cool, and I think one thing that's maybe not lost now, but it's harder to find because places have grown so much, is that start in the volunteer world, right? And moving your way
Yeah.
up. I didn't mention before, my uncle is also in the fire service, and uh, uh, he started as a volunteer to a department, and he was one of the original ones that got hired full time. I mean, so
Nice.
it's crazy that, and I feel like those are the department that you started at. Is it still volunteer or?
No, that's you hit the nail on the head. There's virtually no volunteer departments in California anymore. And we were surrounded by volunteers when I started in 1987. But the station's there, the department's still there, but it's all full time now, and it's a different department now. It's they signed a contract for service with Monterey Fire Department, and so not a lot of nostalgia in that station. I mean, going way back, but it's fun. Every once in a while I'll stop by and say hi. Not too often, but I just think about all the history that those guys don't even know about. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing against them. They weren't even born,
Yeah.
just like I wasn't. I mean, the fire station was built in 1937, so there was plenty of history before my little ass showed up there one day. So it's just it's a very different vibe than it was back in those days in the 70s and 80s when it was volunteers, and it was just a different flavor. It was just a different flavor. And I think for those who haven't had the chance to be a volunteer, I don't know. There's something special about that, starting your career that way.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
a really strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you really understand what we're really there for, right? I mean, to serve people, right? It's not a
Yeah.
paycheck, so
Yeah. I never worried about my pay in 32 years.
yeah,
I never cared. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody. It was a gift for me but it was also a curse, like you and I spoke about in the green room. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you come from a family heritage and a family lineage of firefighting and you're a volunteer. You have a very different mindset typically. I'm saying not better or worse, just different than the typical career firefighter who doesn't have the family background, who's there for a paycheck. And I'm not saying they're not also there to do a good job, they don't love it, because they do. But I unfortunately found myself frustrated a lot of my career because people didn't have the same level of passion that I did, and it wasn't fair to those people, because as I rose the ranks, I think I probably browbeat a little too much over someone that having a good enough attitude, even though they did the job fine, even though they did their job and they came and went and earned their paycheck. If they didn't meet my little standard of passion, I kind of, I browbeat him a little bit. That probably wasn't fair.
hey, you're resonating with me because I'm living that, and I'm on, getting much better than I used to be. But yeah, I'm in that, right? That whole trying to balance. Not everyone's going to feel the same way as you do, right? And I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of other people deal with that same kind of passion gap, I guess, if you will. That's probably too harsh a way to say it, but yeah.
Well, that's why we have, like you said, FDIC, Fools, ISFSI,
Yeah.
all these groups of nitwits who need more, need more. And it's a special thing. The fire service is very special what we have. And um, we want to stoke those fires of passion and keep them going from generation to generation because we love it so much and we know what it gave to us. And so we want to see other people not only be blessed and take from it and receive from that tree of fire service life, but also fertilize and water it and make sure that it's healthy, for the next generation.
Absolutely. Uh, so as you're going through, your career, how did you learn about? And I'm going to assume it's family, but still, how did you learn about the values and culture of the fire service? Was that?
Well, it was obviously family, but my family mirrored the fire service. I'm a team guy. I love being with people. I'm a big extrovert. I was the youngest of five in a big fat Greek family, so it was like everything was food and yelling and hugging and celebrating, and everything was a party all the time. And the fire service was an extension of that into the workplace, And so my values of hard work. My dad was a World War II infantry soldier. He was in the army. He had fought in the Philippines. Purple Heart, the whole bit. And he was, born in 1917 and lived through the Depression. He was a coal miner as a kid. He was one of 8 kids. They were very poor, and his parents were the immigrants that came over. And so the hard work ethic was there from day one. The teamwork with the family, the celebration, the eating together, all that stuff is hardwired into me before I ever set foot in a firehouse at 3 years old or 4 years old. It was literally hardwired into me before that. So it was a natural fit. And so the values and everything that I live by and have come to try to pass on and teach to my kids and to the folks I've worked with over the years are just an extension of not only the fire service, but of my upbringing and of my family and all those core values.
Yeah, awesome.
So when you find somebody else that's like that, and when you find somebody else that's not, it's,
Yeah,
And the hard thing is for those of you who are listening, if you're a boss, it's tough. You can't do this to everybody that doesn't think like you or think the fire service is great as you. You have to be like this with everybody the best you can. And not just the people that think and are as nuts as you about it, because then you're going to be one set up for a very, very frustrating career because people won't always meet your expectations, and two, it's not fair to them. You're going to have conflict, and you're not always going to be as effective as you can and get them to buy in necessarily. Your passion, my passion at least, has become an Achilles heel at times because of my values that I didn't think other people had enough of, if you will. So
yeah, yeah. Uh, so one of the, and I phrase it, I know I sent you other questions. One of the questions that I love to ask and the reason behind it, I feel like not every firefighter gets an opportunity to champion someone early in their career who kind of set them up on the right path, got them off, and maybe they never got to tell them, or maybe they just never acknowledged it in that way. And so who, is there somebody that stands out to you early in your career when you got on the job that really springboarded you to the rest of your career?
Well, obviously, it's going to sound like a broken record, but my two brothers, Mitchell and Demetrius Kastros, my two brothers, they were from the day I was born. They were there for me and have been my best friends and mentors for 54 years of my life to this day. Our dad was larger than life. I mean, he was like a real life Forrest Gump. I'll spare you the stories, but between the war, the depression, and his life, he had a remarkable life. Um, And then once I got into the job, there were some amazing people from a distance and up close, instructors, bosses. One that stands out is Stuart Roth. He was with the Monterey Fire Department. He also started as a volunteer. He's one of my dear friends to this day. He's one of our instructors. He's been one of our instructors on our trained firefighters team. Um, he had this sparkle in his eye. He just had this joy all the time. Nothing got him down. And he was just like, and he was an amazing, inspiring instructor. That was the first time I was around somebody who I went, oh my God, I want to be like this guy because he was such a great instructor. And then, of course, Alan Brunacini, Bruno from a distance because he was with Phoenix and I was in Sacramento. But I heard about this Phoenix Fire Department. They're really doing some amazing things down in Phoenix. And I started to study him. I studied his philosophies, both on command and on leadership and customer service. And I went, oh my God, this man's a genius. This man's like, this guy is on a whole other level. And he was kind of like, I called him the Yoda of the fire service. He's this little kind of guy, but he was amazing. And he was kind of like the Albert Einstein and Yoda of the fire service way back in the 70s. And the first day the first day I had a chance to actually meet him was in 2000, 23 years ago. It was FDIC West in Sacramento, and I remember I said, hey, I'll volunteer to be Brunacini's, hall monitor guy. I'll hand out evaluations or tell people where the bathroom is. I don't care what you want me to do. I just want to be in the room with the guy. And so I walked up. I've told this story a few times. I walked up to him at the beginning of class, and I just held his little face, and he's like looking at me, and I'm like, I go, "Oh, you are a beautiful little man. Do you know this? Do you know this about yourself?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Okay." And I'm like, and I go, and so at the break I come up and I kiss him on the forehead, and he goes, and I'm grabbing his face, and he goes, "What was that for?" And I go, "Because you're awesome. I love you." He goes, "Okay." Then he goes, "Do you drink?" And I go, "Yes." He goes, "Then we'll get along fine." Well, he never drank. He didn't drink, but that was the kind of guy he was. And from that moment on to the day he died, he was always there for me. He was a phone call away. I could call him about when I was getting my ass kicked, when I was being stupid, when I didn't know what to do, and I have nobody else to turn to. Yeah, my brothers were there. Yeah, other mentors. But when you're talking to Alan Brunacini at the time, it's like you're at the top of the pyramid. You might as well be talking to, Moses. It's like, okay. And he always had his funny, down to earth, dry way of just cutting through the BS and getting it back to reality. And I called him a lot, and he was my phone a friend mentor for many, many years. And I wouldn't be here without him. I wouldn't be doing Calm the Chaos and the command training, and I wouldn't be teaching at FDIC, and I wouldn't have written a book or two books. And he wrote the foreword to my first book, which was, it's unbelievable. It's full circle. It's like being a pilot, and Neil Armstrong, is your buddy and writes a forward to some book you wrote on how to be a pilot. It's just unreal. So I've had a very blessed life in this career, and God has been great to me and my family, up, down, left, and right, with amazing mentors and people. So I think that's what drives my passion to pass it on, to teach. Is I was given so much to me, I feel like it's overflowing, and I have to dump it onto somebody else because there's just too much to contain.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, the ripple effect of
yeah.
Bruno. There's people that don't even know.
And I was going to say, if anybody doesn't know who's listening, just Google Alan Brunacini and just sit back and watch the videos, read the stuff. The man was ahead of his time by 100 years. Genius.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit about Bobby too, and we'll talk about him later. But that's another, again, the ripple effect that some of these great firefighters have had. That I would imagine people getting in don't even know, but they practice what they preach. You know what I mean? The customer service aspect that's so ingrained
They
into
just don't
us
know where
now.
it came from.
They just don't know.
Yeah, and that's a good point you bring up. I've got it right here on my desk. I mean, right here, is Bobby's picture and memorial, and his challenge coin is right here.
Yeah.
And I've got a picture of me and Bruno that I keep in my office too. And these guys, they stoke the fire of your passion along the way, and they add logs to it that you didn't even know existed. And and I feel like God has always given me the right person at the right time. Literally, I mean, it was Bruno. Then I was born into an amazing family, and then Stuart Roth, and then Bruno, and then Bobby, and right now, a dear friend and somebody who I felt like, just by the grace of God, has come into my life, is Brian Brush. He and I are writing this. We just wrote this incident command book together. It's going to come out next year, and that to me is another, God ordained friendship that I just never would have imagined.
Yeah. Let's talk about those things too. So book, Calming the Chaos, trainfirefighters.com. Let some people know about what you're doing right now and what exists from you.
Thanks. So about 30 years ago, give or take, I started a company called Firefighter Inspiration, Readiness, and Education, or FIRE, because I wanted to be clever. Oh, I'm going to call it FIRE. And basically, the website is now called trainfirefighters.com, all one word, trainfirefighters.com. And we've been teaching all around the country for a long, long time. And probably the biggest first thing that we did that got us on the map that nobody else was really doing was the assessment center classes. And that was The first book came out in 2006. Bruno wrote the foreword to it, by Fire Engineering, and that really took us to a new level. When I say us, I'm talking about my wife and our team of instructors, because this is a team sport. I don't care who you are, it's a team sport. And as that evolved, people wanted more simulator training. They wanted more because part of the assessment center process includes everything about being an officer, whether you're a lieutenant, a captain, a battalion chief. When you go through an assessment center, and I know that your area, the Chicago, Illinois area, has a lot of assessment centers. I've been there a lot to teach these classes. I've had a lot of students come out. So shout out to all my brothers and sisters in Illinois, and to the Fire Chiefs Association, who's had me out there in many departments. So thank you all. Um, it's really about being an officer. And what it is the book is called Mastering the Fire Service Assessment Center. Okay. And that kind of gets them in the door because they're thinking, I want to take the test. I got to compete with these other people, and I want to be on the top of the list. I want to promote. And so they're thinking, I need to learn the tricks of testing. I need to, outsmart the competition. And then when I get them in the door, I lock the door, like that scene from, what was that? Bronx Tale. Mm. And I just go, okay, now that we got you in here, here's what this class is really about. We dive deep into 4 days of we just eviscerate them professionally. And we just do, as Bruno called it, an occupational autopsy on them while they're still alive. And we help them learn about themselves. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities and threats around you? If you struggle at communicating, how's that going to work for you as an officer, and how do you get better at it? So we do exercises like in baskets, modified in baskets, conflict resolution exercises, writing exercises, you name it, interviews, and then of course simulations, right? And so simulations are one of the most common exercises in any assessment center because that's a big part of our job. So students wanted more and more and more simulations, right? So they wanted, hey, you know what? These 4 days were great, but we want more tactics and strategy, we want more incident command, more simulations. So my wife, being the genius, says, why don't you just do a separate class just for that? And you can go into depth a little more. I said, okay. So we started a 2-day class called Mastering Fireground Command, Calming the Chaos. And that just took off. And then Fire Engineering said, hey, we'll do a video series on it. So we did a 3-part video series on that. It came out in 2011. And that got us, again, on the national stage with FDIC and Fire Engineering. And so the demand started to grow and grow and grow. And then 2 years ago, I think now, 2 or 3 years ago, we put out online versions during COVID. We put out online versions of both of these kind of marquee classes of ours. And now we do a hands-on version of Calm the Chaos, where we come to fire departments all around the country. We just did Miami, Florida. We've done Oklahoma City. We've done all kinds of departments, Reno, Nevada, and all kinds of departments around California and so forth. And we come to your department and give you the online course, which is 32 hours. It's very comprehensive, and it's all heads-up footage of my fires that over the course of 13 years as a battalion chief in a very busy system. So all the principles that you're being taught are followed up with actual incident command post footage. And then there's over 100 simulations in this. There's a simulator lab. So it goes really deep. And then we come to your fire department and do hands-on incident command training with your fire department. So smoke machines, mannequins, we're pulling companies out of service and stretching lines. Everyone's in SCBAs, turnouts, and on radios. And we're doing real life fog of war, smoke, victims trapped, incident command. And so it all started, with just trying to help people get on the job, and then it was trying to help people promote, and then it was a self-published little book from Kinko's, and then it became a real book from Fire Engineering, and then it became a second edition book, and then a video series. So my message to everybody is, you're only limited by your imagination and your faith in yourself, and your faith in what God can do for you. I'm telling you, I'm a guy that started in a 1-station volunteer department in nowhere, America. And Alan Brunacini, to me, was larger than life. And guys like him and others paved the way. And I want to do the same for others. I want others to come to me and say, hey, I've had a lot of guys, hey, how can I write a book? How can I teach a class at FDIC? How can I write an article? How did you do this? And I'm here to tell you, you can do it. Don't be intimidated by the size of FDIC, or if you don't come from a big ass department, that doesn't matter. What matters is you have a passion and you have a gift, and that gift is your passion. And if you can teach and you're passionate about what you're doing while you're teaching it, people will come to you. And so find that niche. And that's one of the things I love doing is not only teaching our students how to teach others, because we do train the trainer, but having people come in and say, hey, I have an idea for this class, or I have an idea for this kind of tool. Do you think you could help me get it off the ground? My answer is always absolutely, because that was what was done for me. And so for all you listening, I don't care if you're from a volunteer department, career combination, one station, half a station, or 200 stations, get yourself out there. If you think you have something to contribute, do it. You will get more out of this career and this life if you do.
Man, couldn't said that any better myself. I did actually have a question while you were going through there, though, that I thought of. So, as you've traveled the country and you've been instructing, incident command and communication and all that, how different are we? Like truly, like at a base level before you show up and you're assessing things. How widely different? Because I know we have NIMS and everybody's supposed to follow NIMS, but how different really are we?
This is the segment of the show where I'm glad I'm drinking straight whiskey. This is whiskey. No, just kidding. But this is what, no. We are so freaking different. It's insane. And that's our mission, is to get us on the same page. Even one fire department that has one station will have 3 different ways of fighting a fire because they have 3 different shifts. Or if you're volunteers, you have 100 different ways because there's 100 different officers or whatever. So within your own agency, there'll be a million ways of doing it, let alone the department next door, let alone across the country. It's exponentially insane how many different ways there are. So I used to say in my department, and I love my department, it's a great department, that we had 5 battalions on any given shift. We had 5 battalion chiefs on duty, and times 3 shift. Well, so we had 15 ways of fighting a fire, literally. And what we're doing with the Calm the Chaos is just chipping away at it, just trying to get you on the same frickin'. And what is that page? It's called the Incident Command System. It's not rocket science. The page has already been written. What we're trying to do is show a training methodology that makes it fun and engaging, that saves more civilians, and keeps us safe and gets us home to our family. And typical traditional ICS training was about, okay, here a division is geographical and a group is functional, and ICS, here's the span of control, and it was very rote memory kind of. I used to say it's like learning the human anatomy. Like a doctor needs to know human anatomy. Does that make him a good doctor? No. But is it a prerequisite to being a good doctor? Yes. So I see the basic ICS training on if you could fill out an ICS chart. That was the big training back in the 70s when ICS first came out, in the early 80s. Can you fill out an ICS chart? That was it. Okay, cool. Well, that's like a doctor saying, I can show you what all the bones in the body are. Does that mean he's a great oncologist? Does it mean he's a great cardiac surgeon? No. So that's what we do with our training, is we teach them how to operate, how to take their knowledge, expand it, and then apply it to anything from a house fire to Maui, and everything in between. And our team is very, very experienced. We have folks that have been with LA City Fire Department for many years. And my department's 40 stations, and I was a battalion chief for 13 years and ran a lot of fires. And I also went to New York on 9/11. We got dispatched on our urban search and rescue task force on 9/11, lost brothers in the pile that day. And I was on an overhead team for 4 years running fires around the country. So there's a lot of experience nationally, and I was a volunteer with one station. So I've been fortunate to have this wide spectrum, and I surround myself with other people who have a lot of experience. And they have to have passion for what they're teaching. They have to have passion and care about their students, and they have to have street credit and have experience, but they also have to be really good instructors. And that's what I ask of my instructors. So circling back to your original question, how different is it? It's freaking crazy, and it makes me nuts. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong. Okay, there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's local stuff, there's regional stuff, there's national stuff. And what we're trying to do is say, look, here's ICS, here's NIMS, here's how you apply it every day in real life. And it adds to the mix victim profiling and tactical decision making, and the type of tactics that you use, the type of staffing you have, what is your typical response to a house fire. Well, Lake Zurich Fire Department is going to be different than Sacramento Metro, which is going to be different from FDNY, which is going to be different from LA City. but there are common things that you plug in to spit out how it's going to look at your fire department while being NIMS and ICS compliant, but not compliant because of rote memory and checking boxes, compliant because you're kicking the shit out of this thing. You're getting ahead of it. You're ahead of the incident power curve. You're saving civilians. Your crews are aggressive. They're empowered to go kick some ass, but they have the proper amount of tactical supervision to watch their ass while they're kicking up something else's ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. It's about aggressive incident command, aggressive firefighting, but not stupid, foolish firefighting.
Yeah, yeah. I think in my area, like we have Mabus, which I'm sure when you've been up here, you've been right. You understand
Sure.
Mabus
Yeah.
and how we
Yeah.
operate. So I think one of the challenges for my area is because of our staffing levels. Like we have jump companies, so that's already a check against us. That's difficult to plan for in a command level. And then on top of that, the size of our crews, the size of the amount of them, and resources. Now, Mabus is making us spread way out. So you're trying to basically plan ahead for complete unknowns of who's even going to show up.
Yep.
And that's been an interesting thing to see. One of the and I'm gonna butcher it, and if my dad's watching this, he's gonna be like, "Oh, you can't say whatever the alliance is," but I think it's what the Western Chicago Suburban Fire Alliance or something. There's like a bunch of departments in the area that he works. They all do the same tactics. They've all got the same, SOGs. They have predetermined.
Huge.
And that's just them together kind
Yeah,
of solving
right.
that problem to a certain extent. So
Yep.
I know
Yep.
at his level, he knows if he goes to a certain department, he's going to be the RIT chief, where,
Right.
he would be the change of quarters chief for another one, and so on and so on. So it's kind of cool that they do it in that way,
Absolutely.
where it almost does kind of feel like a countywide, fire department.
And that's what you want, and that's what you need, because most departments are under three to five stations. Most are 3 to 5 or less, right? Stations. The vast majority is still volunteer. The vast majority don't have adequate staffing. I'm not talking about LA City and FDNY. I'm talking about the rest of the planet. And most of them just don't have a robust enough response system or staffing level to hit some arbitrary NFPA or ICS standard. But they're not arbitrary, but they're sometimes unachievable. Okay, they just don't have the staffing. We've taught this class in Seguin, Texas, which is in the middle of nowhere. Two stations of volunteers, and we've taught it to Miami, Florida, and Oklahoma City, and it works both places, because we're not saying this is how you have to do it or this is what your SOG should be or what your staffing level should be. We're saying, what is your staffing level? What is your SOGs? What's your response level? Are you volunteer combination? What tactics do you employ? Do you vertical vent or not? Do you positive pressure or don't you? We're not telling you what to do. We take all that stuff and we put it into the blender and we say, here's how incident command using ICS, NIMS, and a lot of other principles, both UL NIST science-based principles, practical experience-based principles, timeless principles from all the forefathers that came before us, and how do you make it work and fit your system, your world, and because it's not one size fits all. And the problem when people hear NIMS or ICS, they think, oh, it's one size fits all. It's not going to work. No. It's scalable. It's adaptable to you. So whether you're some doctor in a tiny little town in Nebraska and you've got 2,000 people, or you're a physician at Mount Sinai, in New York, you still got to be a good doctor,
Yeah.
And so that's what we're teaching people: how to make tactical decisions and how to stay ahead of the incident power curve, how to bridge the tactical gap between the crews working and the incident commander. Why is there a gap? What causes the gap? How does the gap widen? What happens when it widens? What is the NIOSH 5? Why is that a bad thing? How do we bridge it to prevent the NIOSH 5 from coming into alignment? Because I don't care if you're at LA City and you have the Boyd Street incident where a bunch of our brothers got burnt up on a commercial fire, or your Porterville, California, which most people have never heard of, where 2 of our brothers died in a library fire. The fire's coming, and it's coming for you, and it's going to kill you, and it wants to hurt you bad. And there are common factors in both worlds, whether it's Porterville or LA City, and we've worked with both. And that's the thing is you can have that universality. Is that a word? Universality. You can have that stuff that is common to the whole fire service, but then you have to have the numerators that are unique to your particular agency. And that's the secret sauce in what we're teaching. And we're doing it hands-on. And so there's, as you know, I mean, hands-on training is a whole other level.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about simulations.
No.
Simulations are great, and we do simulations. But I'm talking about you're in the command post and you've got a training building or an acquired structure that's billowing smoke out of it. Not necessarily working live fire training, but smoke machines. And you got crews going in and turnouts, and they're talking to you, and it sounds like this. And you have to figure out how to communicate with that person. How do I set up a division or a group between me and that person to bridge that gap between me and that firefighter or that captain? That officer is with his or her crew inside a building. They can't see, they can't hear, they can't communicate. I can't understand what the hell they're saying. And their reality and my reality in the command post are two very different worlds. How do I bridge that gap? And that's what the tactical gap is. And that's how we bridge it with division and group supervisors. Not to check a box, not to say, okay, I'm at a division, I'm NIMS compliant. That's the last reason we do it.
Yeah.
We do it because it saves freaking lives and also allows us to go and get and save lives as well as protect our own. It's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. And so I want to quick shout to our chat here because Chris Leanhart, he's saying, wait a minute, I recognize the voice. Was he in charge of El Camino? Yes, he was. And yeah, absolutely. And I use that. I use that for training all the time. I love what you've put out from that. And it's a great way to explain a number of things, including survivable space and all that. I mean, it really, kudos to not only your crew, but you for putting that out, right?
It was all them.
And Mike Wilchess here is saying you're making some great points, and you absolutely are. I think one of the things that I love to poke at and talk about with incident command is when establishing that group supervisor makes sense. So I know that staffing's got to permit that to a certain extent, right? In your span of control. I have been on fires where that group supervisor has been invaluable, and then I've been on fires where they've made someone a group supervisor that still needed to do work, you know what I mean, early on in an incident. So you could probably touch on that, kind of the sweet spot, if you will, for when establishing that makes sense.
You know what? I'm glad I'm taking some notes here.
Mm-hmm.
So I love what you said. It is a sweet spot. It's a sweet spot. You don't want to do it too early or too late. So let's talk about what I call the ICS formula. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that we teach that's not in the ICS NIMS stuff. The ICS formula is the building plus the conditions plus the resources. So when do I establish a division or group? How do I do it? Who's going to be the division or group, right? And then those three things have to come into play. Building, is it large, small? Is it commercial, residential? Is it multi-floor? Is it wide rise, high rise? All those things matter. Is it construction type? Is it a tilt up? Is it a balloon frame? Is it conventional? Is it URM? What is it? That all matters because that's going to determine how you're going to organize the building, how you're going to anticipate the fire is going to behave in the building. And so you have to think about that before you just arbitrarily throw a division or group supervisor on some floor. Second thing is the conditions. Okay, light smoke, heavy smoke, working fire, multiple rooms, multiple units, victims trapped, exposure problems, fire in the overhead, and the cockloft in the attic, basement, all that kind of stuff. Wind, weather, time of day, victim profile, all that comes into play. And then finally, and you can have those first two anywhere in America, right? The biggest variable is what? Resources. And do I have one volunteer chief and 30 volunteers? Do I have 5 chiefs and 60 career firefighters in 2 seconds? Am I FDNY? Am I LAFD? Am I Metro Fire? Am I Seguin, Texas? Where am I and what's my resource level? Because you can't have a very robust incident command system if you don't have the parts and pieces to make it work, right? You hit the nail on the head, Alex, when you said, look, I don't want to take away a worker to fill a division or group role. So the question becomes, when do I take away a worker? Because we're all workers. I don't care if it's a chief or not. They're all workers. Okay. When do I take a worker and put him from task to tactical? When do I take him from working to heads up supervising? And that has to be an investment. Okay. It's because when you take away that worker, you're saying I'm investing his labor and investing it into another effort called supervision. What's my return on that investment? So if I lose a guy on a nozzle or a gal on a search crew, and I put them as a division or group soup, what's my gain? And the gain is the NIOSH 5. You gain better risk assessment, meaning they're going to see stuff in the tactical space, in that tactical gap, that the crews will never see, like fire over their head or impending collapse or a basement underneath them that's involved they didn't even know about when they got on scene, right? Or victim profile or fire conditions changing around them, and them they can't see their hand in front of their face. They're task focused and don't hear the radio, right? And so that's number one. Plus, what's the incident commander going to miss? They're going to miss all the same stuff because they're too far away. Even if you're on the front alpha side of the building, 25 feet away, even if you're on the front yard, you're going to miss the back, the sides, the inside, the basement, the roof. You can't see everything at once, and you can only take so many inputs. So I'm going to take somebody, I'm going to invest at one of the workers and say, you are my eyes and ears on the alpha side, Bravo, Charlie roof, wherever it is, or third floor, 10th floor, whatever, and you're now my eyes and ears. So I'm completely trusting in you to take care of those crews and to make tactical decisions. So that brings us to from risk assessment to the next thing, which is accountability. Who's going to account for crews better? Me at the command post, out at the command post. I don't care if the command post is the front yard, if it's behind a BC rig, if it's a block away, or if it's a mile away. You're not going to, I don't care what system you use for accountability. They're all great, okay? But you're never going to have the same accountability as a tactical supervisor who has eyes on, hands on, real-time, active accountability, seeing the crews coming and going, knowing that engine 1 went to the left and engine 2 went to the right, and they went in 2 minutes ago. And I'm expecting to see these changes, them come out in this amount of time. Nobody can do that for you. No system can do. Now, are there a great system? Yes. But to me, those are backup systems to a human leader being in a supervisory role. So there's your communications. I'm going to get much better communications because now instead of, okay, I have a supervisor in the back called Division Charlie who can see knockdown without even talking to them. He can see knockdown. He can see conversion. He can communicate to roof if he needs to, or alpha, or say, command Division Charlie, they have a good knockdown on the fire. We're going to transition into salvage and overhaul without ever talking to the crews because he saw the conditions change. Or one of the crew members comes out and says, hey boss, we got a primary search. We're gonna start a secondary. Okay, he heard that face to face through a mask. That's easier than through the radio on a mask, right? So now I could say, okay, command Division Charlie, engine 1 reports primary search complete. I'm gonna have engine 2 start a secondary. Okay, accountability is a whole other level. The next one is incident command itself. By having these folks out there, me as the IC, my span of control goes down, right? I've decentralized my decision-making out to those supervisors. And I'd say, you know what, here's the strategy, here's the priority. You guys go and do the tactical part. I'll keep track of the big picture. I'll get ahead of this thing and call resources. I'll support you. Here's my plan. You guys execute it and tell me if we need to change the plan. And that can't happen. That can't happen with a guy on a nozzle. Because what does the guy on the nozzle want to do? Keep fighting fire no matter what. Period. End of subject. Right? When have you ever heard somebody inside of a building on air say, we need to go defensive? You ever heard that? I haven't. No, it doesn't happen. Because in their mind, we still got it. We still got it. It's always somebody outside that goes, oh crap, we need to go defensive. Right? And if I'm at the command post, I might miss that view. But my supervisor will see it. And then finally, SOGs. Are they following the SOGs? Are we in line with the SOGs? Do we need to tweak where we're going here and kind of push a little bit? Or are they just being idiots and I need to reel them in? Okay, so those are the NIOSH 5. And that's just from NIOSH reports, reading all of them and looking at them and looking at the trends. And, our friends at firefighterclosecalls.com, Billy Goldfeder and those guys, they're the ones that really started that terminology. I just took it and ran with it. But that's what you're getting back for the investment of one task level worker. Because I know even if you have minimal staffing, how often have you been in a burning building, you look around and half the guys aren't doing anything. They just kind of stand around waiting for some supervision or some leadership or some direction. How many times have you been in a house fire and command calls to engine 1 and asks for a CAN report? Give me an update, give me a CAN report, and engine 1 keys the mic and standing right next to him is engine 2.
Yeah.
And if they don't feed back on each other, then he says, copy, engine 2, give me a counter report. And he's sending right next to engine 1, who just gave the same report. So now you had twice as many transmissions that were terrible versus one supervisor consolidating their companies into one CAN report on behalf of all those companies. That's it.
Yeah.
And so that's really what it comes down to. I don't even remember the original question, so forgive me.
But talking about that sweet spot, right? When you pull a worker off.
So the sweet spot, thank you. So the sweet spot is too soon or too late. So you have to have that as a background before I can answer the question, what's the sweet spot? What's the ICS formula, building conditions resources? What's the NASH 5? What are you getting back for that investment? So the sweet spot when is answered by all of that. So as an example, if I have one engine company on scene and I'm a chief, I'm not going to make a division or group because I don't have enough resources. If I have two companies on scene, I still might not, based on the rest of it. For example, let's say I have a house fire with 2 victims trapped and I have 2 engines on scene. I'm not going to make a division or group because they both have to work, and I can manage them. I can manage 2 to 1 very easily, and I need them to work. Now, though, I've got 3 victims and an additional company shows up. Now I'm starting to teeter on, okay, it's about time. Because I'm not just thinking about what I have going on now. I'm thinking about what's my next 1, 3, 5, and 10 minutes. Am I about to have a second alarm come in on me? Is the fire getting worse? Am I going to add a third alarm? And I want to stay ahead of it. Because if you wait until you're overwhelmed to make a group or division, it's already too late. It's already too late. Okay, so you have to do it before you need it. The question is how long before? How soon? It's all about anticipating the power curve. The incident will spike, and then it'll start to do this, and then it'll have a secondary peak. The incident power curve goes like this. You get on scene, and everything's going crazy. You've got nothing going on. You have a lot of stuff going on. People are screaming. There's fire. You need to get lines in place. You need to get searches going. You need to get a supply established. You might call additional alarm. And then all of a sudden, they start to get a knock on it. And maybe you even see conversion. And you start thinking, hey, we might got this. And then you get a primary complete. And then you start thinking, okay, we're going down. We're getting better. But guess what? There's always a secondary spike. And it could be there's fire in the attic we didn't know. A mayday. We have a victim we didn't know we had. The pump fails. The hydrant's no good. There's always that secondary spike. The smart incident commander doesn't wait till over here to put a division or group in place. They do it over here while this is happening. But not so soon that the first company becomes a division or group. You don't want to do that. The reason why we don't make the first company a division or group is why we want work done in their task level. Get to work. Based on the type of incident, I might need 2 companies, 3 companies to go to work before I make a division. I had a 3-story center hall apartment fire one night. Came in at 2 a.m, going like hell because what happened was the gas line was severed. And it blew up, and it blew the roof off the top of the building, and it blew the walls out. This is before we got on scene. Multiple apartments are burning, multiple people are trapped, and there's high winds and a gas leak. The whole first alarm has to go to work right now. And I have to bridge the gap with my brain. I can't make divisions. I tried to. This is where I learned this hard lesson was I tried to make a division, and one of the captains said, blow it at your ass because I got work to do. And I said, okay, you're right. Lesson learned, And so I had to wait till the second chief showed up to even make a division. Now, that was based on what? Building conditions resources. Big ass building, 200 by 200, 3-story center hall. Conditions. Lots of fire, gas fed, explosion, building collapse, victims trapped. Resources. 3 alarms. So I was able to use chiefs, and I could afford to wait for chiefs because it took a while to get to that 3rd floor. It took a while to get lines stretched, to get supplies going, get crews to the roof. And in that time, here comes my wave of second chiefs. Now I can make them my divisions. House fire, different story. Now I've got engine 1 arrives, initiates fire attack. Engine 2 comes in, assumes command from engine 1. Got 2 engines on scene. They're fighting fire. They're getting a water supply. They're thinking about 2 out / backup line. First truck's arriving with me. Now I'm right at 3 to 1 on arrival. Okay, where's this going? Well, you know what? The fire's still cranking along. We don't even have a primary. Okay, guess what? Second engine that was in command, you're now Division Alpha. You, the captain who was in command, you were already in command anyway. You're now Division Alpha. I just bridged the tactical gap. I'm here to take command from you. You've got your crew, Engine 2, and Truck 1 all working for you. and all of a sudden the radio traffic goes real quiet. Accountability, all the other NIOSH 5 get taken care of. And let's say all of a sudden they want a second line, no problem. Feed Division Alpha. We need rooftop vertical vent. Second truck, your roof division, go to work. Now I'm at what? 2-1. Okay. And second chief, he wasn't even on scene yet. Yet I've got 4 companies working, but I'm at 2-1. Now all of a sudden I get told we got a victim trapped as the medic arrives. So I'm going to call a second medic. I just went to 5-6-1. And I call a second medic, and the first medic goes right to work getting the victim. Turns out, there's 2 patients. Now I've got additional medic. Now I'm at 7-8-1. Chief shows up. Now I'm at 9-1. See what happens? If I didn't make that division, house fires go really freaking fast. Bigger fires, there's a little more discretion. It takes time for companies to get in place to get the tasks going. So you may use a third or fourth company to be a division or the second chief, versus a house fire, which and when do we get victims trapped? House fires.
Yeah.
Apartment fires. That's when it's happening. So I hope that answers the question.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that obviously the takeaway, like, it's dynamic, right? To make sure that you're dynamic with it, that it's, don't get in a box, right, where it's specific. Every fire you will do at this time. This specific company will do it at this time, right? Like, it's very fluid and dynamic. I really love the way that you've phrased all that, and I think that makes all the sense in the world. And you covered like 6 of my questions, I feel like.
Sorry.
So no, in a good way. In a good way.
And we can dive into any of those more if you want, just to kind of dive, because I know I cover, because it's hard to answer these questions in 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah.
It's not checkbox. Real incident command is it's making something that's very complex into something that's simple and easy to apply and easy to understand and easy to work in.
Yeah.
Right? It's complex. It's a lot going on. It's the capstone of the fire service. To be an incident commander means you better know everyone else's job pretty damn well, right? And I've seen it where that's not the case. I've seen incident commanders who were never on a truck. I've seen incident commanders who were on that many fires, and it shows. They have to have experience and depth, and then be able to not only understand and have done those jobs, but organize it, anticipate, and think ahead. But more importantly, empower their officers to fill those gap positions of tactical divisions or groups. It's a team sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess one of the other questions I get with tactics and well, maybe not tactics, I apologize, but in incident command is I've seen some people want to be in the car, some people want to be out of the car. Can you share some insight and some of your thoughts on that, of when to be in the car, when to be out of the car?
It's completely a personal preference. Okay, I never was in the back of the car, and I never stood in the front yard. I always was in the car. Why? Well, number one, being outside, whether you're in the front yard or in the back of the car, will get you a lot of distractions. Noise, engines, horns, rigs pumping, saws, people screaming, and every bystander wants to come and ask you what's going on. And if you have a city council, board of directors, off-duty, whoever, they're going to come and bug you, ask you questions, and you just want to eliminate the background noise and the distraction. So that's why I sat in the rig. I locked the door, put the windows up, put the air conditioner on, a little recirculate, little Frank Sinatra, little mint julep, ready to go, kicking back, relaxing. Okay. And of course, when somebody comes up to ask a question, I got to switch from recirculate to fresh. I get a little positive pressure, especially on a hot day. Okay, put the window down a little bit. What do you got? What's up? Okay. All right, good. Close the window, recirculate. That's supposed to be funny. Anyway, the point is that's what I preferred. Is it wrong to go in the back? No. But I can tell you, people don't do it because they think it's great. They do it because that's what they were told to do. That's what they saw their whole time. And I always got it. I get it from everywhere. I used to get it from my colleagues. I still get it from Anthony Avillo. How come you command the fire from the car? Why the hell aren't you out in the front yard? Why don't you teach your classes from the freaking lobby? What the hell? And I'm like, because I'm not a fascist prick like you, Anthony. Okay. And so we give each other crap. Yeah. But that's just my opinion. I think if you're at the front, you're going to get sucked into the tasks and be overwhelmed and overstimulated, not hear the radio. I think if you're at the back of the rig, you may not be overstimulated by the fire, but you'll be overstimulated by all the surrounding sounds and people that want to bug the hell out of you. And so a controlled environment, I have heard past devices that no one else heard. I have heard Viber alerts on people's transmissions that you would never hear if you were elsewhere. Little nuances in somebody's voice inflection, right? That kind of stuff matters. and it forces you to stay in your position at the strategic level. And the only reason why I'm empowered to do that is because I have tactical supervisors bridging the gap. I'm sure if I didn't use ICS or create tactical supervisors or have a decentralized system where people were empowered and equipped to fill those roles, I'd want to get out to the front of the building too. Because how else am I going to find out what the hell's going on? Closer is better, right? But when you create divisions or groups, you literally step back and decentralize and say, I'm trusting you. It might just be one officer being division alpha. If commercial, maybe it's two officers alpha, Charlie with a roof division. Maybe you got Rick, maybe you got medical. You take what was 10-1 and make it 3-1. And now when you're further back, you can get in the what if part of the fire. Okay. The task level is the now, what's happening right now. The tactical is next, what's happening in the next minute or two. The strategic is supposed to be then what if. Then I'm going to call a second alarm. Then I'm going to get an investigator and a rehab crew. What if I have a mayday? Guess what? Task level ain't thinking that stuff. They're thinking about right now, get some. That's all they're thinking, right? So the further you're able to get back, the more you can get ahead of that curve we talked about earlier.
Oh, it's great advice. It makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. So for you personally, what was your transition from supervisor, from company officer into that command role? How did you go about? Were you formally taught a lot of things? How much of it was self-driven? How was that transition for you?
I want to say a lot of it was self, because as you well know, most of everybody listening knows at the fire service, we're all out for ourselves in the sense that most fire departments don't give you enough succession planning training. They don't give you enough in-house officer development, whether it's lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, or above. So you have to go out and find it on your own. And so from an early age, having had those mentors, my brothers, the Stuart Ross, the Brunos of the world, I went out and continually sought opportunities to learn. But not only learned, but then start to train and give back, but also deepen that understanding through the training. And so the transition from company to chief officer for me was a very natural one because I had been around some amazing mentors and had a lot of experience both on the large scale and on the day-to-day stuff. And I felt I was ready for it. I had been teaching and developing officers for many years, including chief officers as a captain with my books and classes. And I thought, okay, now I'm ready to go. And it was really interesting. I remember when I taught an assessment center class before my own battalion chief test, I had guys that were taking the same test with me, taking the class from me. And I'm like, it didn't bother me because it wasn't about being arrogant. It was like, it's not about the test. It's about what do you already have? What is the skills that you possess and can engage on any given situation? And I don't need to worry about giving away secrets in some class. I'm happy to help, right? And so for me, it was pretty natural.
You feel like it just clicked? Incident command or?
Yeah, because I'm weird and I like things organized.
So it was a partially loaded question because my little tiny quick background of me when I left my department before Lake Zurich, I was a lieutenant and I did act in the battalion chief role, and I never had a major incident. I had a vehicle rollover, and that was my claim to fame, if you will, for that when and I was managing a couple companies and I had some fire alarms and that kind of stuff, but I really didn't get a ton of formalized training, and that's not knocking them, but it's like you said, like there's only so much you can get, and there's a point where they were like, "Hey, Ryan's off. You're in the car," and I'm like, "What?"
Nah.
And that pushed me to go try to find some information on my own. But I realized as I kept doing it that it just clicked, and I remember I asked my dad about that, and he was like, "No, like for some people, like command structure and that just makes sense." And I was curious, if that. It was kind of the same way for you.
I'm anal, type A, weird. I have Tourette's, which comes with a side order of OCD, which is great when you want to organize shit. So it makes you think about things to the nth degree before they ever happen. And so to me, knowing I'm too stupid to do it on my own, I had to develop other people around me to be part of that incident command structure, if that makes sense. And watching the way that Brunacini, for example, empowered people on all levels is what I wanted to do as a battalion chief. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it alone. I needed to develop officers around me that could either take command or take a division or group or work without me or with me and act on my behalf on what's best and even counter what I'm asking. And even I call it loyal disobedience. And just for if he's listening, if he's ever listening, David Rhodes, I coined that phrase before you did. But the loyal disobedience part is really important. I've had, like I said earlier, I've had captains come back and go, I can't run this division for you. I'm still task level. I'm like, okay, cool. So command is a team sport, and it's always been thought of as an individual sport. It's golf, it's tennis, right? No, it's a command. Firefighting is a team sport. Command was always looked upon as a solo operation. It's not. It's a team sport. And so what I wanted to do, and I was obsessed with, was developing the people around me, my department, my battalion, now the country, on how to understand this is the command's a team sport. None of us were smart enough, especially me, to be able to organize, get our head around an incident that's this complex that wants to kill a lot of people. It's killing people and it's destroying buildings before you ever get there. And when you get there, you're going to throw more people into it, on it, and at it, thinking it's going to get better. And sometimes, guess what? It doesn't. How do you get ahead of it, fix it? It's not a solo operation. Anybody thinks it is ignorant, arrogant, or heaven forbid, both. And I didn't want to be, because I'll tell you, let me give you an example. My first day on the job as a battalion chief, okay? The list came out on July 1st. I filled an acting position my first day on 4th of July in California on a red flag day. I had 14 working fires my first day in the seat. And the department did nothing to help me learn anything. Not their fault. It's come a long way. The department now does captain academies, battalion chief academies. It has a very robust system of mentoring and succession planning. Back when I got promoted, zilch. Okay. And so my first shift, I'm going literally from fire to fire to fire, all working fires, some of them grass, some of them structure, some of them both. And all I had to rely on was my training. And it was the stuff that I taught in my classes, in my book. And I'm like, it has to work because I got no other options here. And fortunately, if you tell somebody, I need you to be Division Alpha, you got the front of the building, here's engine 1, 2, and 3, put the fire out and do a good search for me. Most people can make that work. Now, are there nuances? Absolutely. Are there specific training techniques and details to be really good at it, where you have to learn how to be hostile, agile, mobile? Yes. How to account for crews, how to recognize changing conditions, how to make tactical decisions, how to recognize the NOASH 5 when it's coming. Yes, of course. But pretty much any schnook can run a division in the heat of the moment, right? Case in point, I was teaching this class again to a small volunteer department. And after class, there's a 2-day class. And the first night I'm back in my room, relaxing, eating dinner. And I get a phone call from the fire chief who brought the class to his department. And I hear a siren in the background. Wee, 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 wee. And I hear this, do you want to go to a fire? And I'm like, are you going to a fire? He goes, yeah, I'm going to a fire. You want to go? I'm all, no. I'm having dinner. I'm relaxing. And he goes, okay. Click. So turns out he goes to this, like 3 mobile homes are going nuts, right? He gets there, and there's like 57 different volunteer departments are on scene, and 500 more are coming, right? So there's no accountability. There's no SOGs. It's the Wild West. Every man for himself. And this chief shows up, and there's already another incident commander, another chief whose jurisdiction it was in, because he was mutual aid, who's in command, and his eyes are this big. And this chief who was in my class walks up and goes, and the incident commander was not in the class. Incident commander is drowning. And the chief from the class walks up and goes, you want me to take a Division Alpha for you? That means I'll take the front and I'll take all those guys over there. We'll put this fire out for you. What do you think that IC said?
Please.
Okay. He didn't go, well, no. He goes, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, yeah. It's not rocket science. And it requires you to recognize that you can't do it all on your own, even especially before the fire comes. Because when you start arguing during the fire, bad things happen. And I've been there, and it's not fun.
I gotta acknowledge my chat here for a second. So Jay Vandenberg says, as the official mustache diplomat, I must acknowledge Alex's accomplishments beyond this podcast. I'm certified as mustache ops. No, I'm not. I still don't grow in the middle. We're
Yeah, I
getting
was
there.
noticing. What's with the fire break right there? What's that
It's
all about?
genetics, and I could make a really off-color joke that I don't know if I want to make on
Don't
the
do it.
podcast,
Don't
so I'm
do
not
it.
going to do it.
Don't do it.
However, and I got to acknowledge my black eye. I got hit in the face with a shovel while I was doing my deck
Hit in the face with a shovel.
with a shovel. It was myself too, which makes it even worse. But
Yeah. Okay.
and yeah, my wife watched the whole thing, so
Yeah. Any witnesses? Oh, your wife, huh?
straight
Yeah,
up
of course.
watched it. Brought the
Yeah.
kids to the window.
Husband-wife privilege. Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
The boys are waving at me. Look at Daddy out there digging.
Pink.
Not good. Bad luck. Anyway, so I think that was kind of it for the command questions. I really did want to talk about originally kind of how I reached out to you in the first place. So a little background behind it. So I sat through the FDIC's tribute to Bobby Halton this year, and a variety of speakers went up and told stories about Bobby and all these things that he did for them and inspired them. And your story really was just something else and obviously all of them were great stories to hear, but yours really hit me, and I wanted you to kind of talk about the recliner snipers and that what went through or what you went through in that.
So as you're talking, I'm holding my little Bobby Halton challenge coin here. So I coined the phrase recliner snipers along the way in my career. And these are guys that sit in their recliners, locked and loaded, waiting for somebody to try something, do something new, have a good attitude, try and promote, try and be in charge of a committee, do anything good. And what do? They're just sitting there waiting. And every sniper has a spotter. And what they do is they just wait. And the problem is these recliner snipers, they're insecure, they're pissed off, they've got baggage, either they were passed over for promotion, or maybe they were bullied as a kid, or maybe they're going through a divorce. I don't know what it is, but everyone's got baggage. I have it, you have it, everyone's got baggage in the world. Recliner snipers don't know how to manage their own baggage, and they usually hit other people over the head with it and don't even realize they're doing it. Sometimes they do know they're doing it, but their insecurities cause them to shoot down other people in the firehouse to feel better about themselves. So if I went to the academy with Joe, and Joe steps up and says, I want to try and promote on this next test, I'm going to take the test. And I look and I go, well, that makes me feel bad about myself. I didn't take the same classes. I wasn't as motivated because I had kids. Well, Joe, you're not ready, man. I've known you since the academy. You're not freaking ready. That's recliner sniping. Okay. And so, but what it is, it's a manifestation of insecurities. And I got my ass kicked by recliner snipers. And to this day, they're all out there. They never stop. I've converted many of them, and some of them I couldn't, and some of them I just avoided. But they're out there, they're real, and if you're listening to this podcast, that means you care, you're engaged, and you're going to have a target on your back. You might want to do a simple drill. You might come to work with a good attitude one day, and some recliner sniper is going to be triggered, as we say nowadays, triggered, and they're going to literally pull the trigger on you because it makes them feel better to shoot you down, either backstab you or do it to your face or do it in front of a crowd. And recliner snipers tend to be they run in packs. They run together in packs because they are insecure. They like to operate with others like them because it makes themselves feel better and more powerful. Typically, they don't snipe by themselves. They usually have to have at least one spotter. So when they work overtime shifts, either they'll keep quiet or they will snipe because they think they're making a statement on behalf of all the other buddies back at their shift. And so in any case, they're a pain in the ass. However, I believe that with good leadership, they can be rehabilitated because you need to know what caused them. What's their baggage? What caused them? Was it childhood? Was it the chief pissed them off? Was it passing over for promotion? They didn't make the list. They studied hard. Are they going through divorce or something with their kids? And where we really learned about this was in our assessment center classes because our students would manifest their baggage and in these classes because it's very intense. When you're being interviewed by two people you don't know in a class, or you're having to do a simulation, or you're having to do a conflict resolution, and the person reminds you of your teenage kid who's pissing you off right about now in your life, shit's going to go down. And I've seen it happen 100,000 times, and it happens in real life. And so, as a boss, for those of you who are officers, don't take it personal and don't make it personal. That's something I did. I took it personal. I made it personal way too much in my career, and that wasn't the right thing to do. Don't take it personal. Don't make it personal, and find out what the root cause is. Why are they sniping? Are they insecure? Are they pissed off? What happened? And you don't confront them with it. Hey, I know you got passed over for promotion. That's why you're an asshole. So let's talk about that. That's not going to work. They don't like direct. They like indirect. They need respect because they're not getting it from somewhere else. Okay. And so the way they get respect is by putting others down. They're bullies, basically, right? So you give them respect in other ways. You talk to them with respect. You call them senior man if they're the most senior guy in the firehouse. You talk to them on the side and you advocate for them, or maybe you get them to help you do a project and you give them a lot of kudos, or they do a good job on a fire and you go out of your way to really pat them on the back in front of everybody. That's and sooner or later, I've had recliner snipers who never would have taken a promotional test unless I talked to them about it and kind of said, hey man, you'd be a great captain. You just need to stop doing this, and I think you'd be amazing. Or hey, have you ever thought about this? But again, my biggest pitfall was making it or taking it personal, and it doesn't have to be that way. But when you're passionate, that's the Achilles heel. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, it's really easy to take it personal, right? It's a much easier road to be upset about that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But it's inspiring to hear. You had some conversions from people that were like that. Like that's
a lot of people over the years, a lot, and because when you know how to approach a recliner sniper, they really respond. They're like, whoa, nobody ever cared enough to talk to me before. That kind of is the response. Nobody ever advocated for me before. Thank you for reaching out to me, But if you have a real hard case, it can be tough. They're lashing out. They're like a dog that was abused. They bite everybody, and you try and put your hand out to give them a snack and they bite it. And it's hard not to pull your hand away and hit the dog back, So that's, it happens sometimes.
I got a question from the audience here. So it's what are your thoughts on helping others get ready for the test, even if they'll be your competition? And I know you kind of touched a little bit on that, but
I think it shows a level of confidence and maturity. I don't like to think of a test as competition. When you think of a test as a competition, or you're being scored, or you're being ranked, or you have to get on a list and beat somebody else, or what do the assessors want to hear, you're setting yourself up for not necessarily failure, but a really rough time before you ever get there. This is a prime part of what we teach in our classes. We teach checking your bags at the door, and we teach being the officer when you walk in and not thinking about the test and competing. So like I mentioned earlier in the show, I've had my quote unquote competitors in my classes, and it didn't bother me because I want to help them. I'm not afraid of giving away some secret because I know how hard I've worked. I know who I am, and it's not about competing with this person. It's about the greater good of the fire service. Because when I walk in there, I'm Battalion Chief Kastros or Captain Kastros or whatever the test is. That's what I am that day, and I'm not thinking about. So, for example, when I would go to tests, literally being in the test, and I get a phone call, hey man, I just saw you pull in the parking lot. You want to come hang out before we go in for our test? I'd say, brother, I appreciate that, but no, I'm going to kind of chill by myself. Because all they're going to do is feed that test mindset. Hey, man, did you study a lot? Are you ready? You think you're going to be good? What do you think you're going to ask us, man? No, just get out of the mindset. And that again, takes away the whole competing thing. And so when you're preparing, but at the same time, if you do choose to be with somebody else or a group of 3 of you or something, I wouldn't have more than 3, number one. And number 2, I would make sure that the people that I'm working with work their ass off. They're the kind of people that aren't going to, I'm not going to hold them up. And they're not going to hold me back. You got to be with people that are going to bring a lot to the table with you. Personally, I never had a study partner ever. That's just me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I know, and I've only done the one process from Antioch, my prior job, and some of us studied together. It wasn't like it was a group though, where we met at this time every time,
Yeah.
But there was a lot of, but I also know there were people that like you, where they focused on their thing and they had their mindset and they did what they did, right? And I don't think there's a one size fits all for that in any stretch of the imagination.
There's not a one size fits all. Just a couple of things to consider is, hey, don't have people that are going to come to you and not bring something to the table and work as hard as you. But I didn't ever feel like they were competing, not because I was arrogant. I just didn't look at the test as a competition. I looked at it as a day at work.
Yeah.
It's my first day on the job as a battalion chief. I'm going to go in and be a battalion chief.
Yeah.
And so would you, as an officer driving to work, as a company or chief officer, think to yourself while you're driving to work, okay, today's Tuesday, it's our first shift. I really hope that I look better than Battalion 5
No.
I really hope I look better than Engine 20's captain. No, you're there to do a job. Just focus on the task in front of you that day during the process, and do it from the position of mindset of a company officer, chief officer, whatever, what have you, and leave your bags at the door while you're doing it. You'll be
Yeah,
fine.
that's great advice. That's great advice. So I know uh, if anybody wants to throw any other questions, Chief Castro's way, throw them in there. Otherwise, we're going to kind of roll into some of these wrap up questions here. So first things first, what's one mistake over the course of your career that you've made but learned from?
When I took it personal, I made it personal, and I took it personal, and I shouldn't have, and I regret that. And it's hard to get somebody back when you do that to them from a position of leadership. You, as a boss, whatever your rank is, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he had a really good point. He said, that movie Band of Brothers, Major Winners, I think it was, said, "Hey, don't ever put yourself in a position to take anything from your guys, because you're in a role where you have authority. Don't abuse it. And when you take it or make it personal in a position of authority, it's not fair to the other person. It's bullying, and you can't profess to not like uh, recliner snipers or try and rehabilitate recliner snipers, and then one of them snaps at you, you kick them in the balls. You can't do that. You have to be above it, and you can't make it personal, even if they do. You have to walk away, cool off, and collect yourself and approach. But that's probably the biggest thing for me.
All right. Have you ever lost your passion for the fire service? And if you did, how did you get it back, and what keeps you passionate?
I lost it twice. Um, I think in the course of a career, the average firefighter will go through burnout once every 10 years. So if you have a 30-year career, you'll probably go through 3 burnouts. It's a season. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't think it's all is lost. And oh my God, it could be a million different things that cause the burnout. It could be personal stuff at home. It could be getting your ass kicked by recliner snipers. It could be going through a promotional test and not making the list. It could be a bad call with PTSD. There's a lot of reasons. So don't freak out. Know it's a season and get help. For me, I allowed the recliner snipers above me. I allowed my bosses, bad leadership above me, to drive me crazy. And um, before the age of 48 years old, I had 2 strokes. Before the age of 48 years old, and it was because of stress. It wasn't cardiac. They put a cardiac monitor in my chest for 2.5 years, implanted, that was monitoring my heart rate for 2.5 years straight, 24 hours a day. Not one AFib, not one arrhythmia. They also did an angiogram and did the whole cath lab thing. No occlusions. It was not cardiac related. It was stress related. It was called reversible cerebral vasospasm syndrome, which was basically stress induced spasming of your arteries in your brain that mimics a stroke. It does stop blood flow. There is ischemia, but it's not from a clot and it's not a bleed. But it mimics that, and that your blood vessels constrict because of stress, and then they release. So by the grace of God, I didn't have any permanent deficits, but it knocked me on my ass 2 times, 4 years apart. And it was because in both cases I was stressed out and pissed at my bosses. The ideology in both cases, I was pissed off at my bosses, stressed out, and I allowed them to get to me enough to where I couldn't control my stress anymore. I was drinking too much alcohol, which I didn't normally do, drinking too much coffee, which I didn't normally do, drinking 5-hour energy drinks, and pissed off all the hell, and I was having chronic migraines and headaches at work. The day I retired, they went away. Now, in both cases, I had a 4-month rehab. The strokes were 4 years apart. In both cases, I had a 4-month rehab. And in both cases, I had to ask myself, do you really want to go back? Do you really want to go back to that environment? And the answer obviously was yes on both counts. It took 4 months to rehab mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually with my wife. And there was a lot of questions about, do you want to re-expose yourself to this? And I didn't blame those people. You're going to have bad bosses. You're going to have people with baggage. You're going to have snipers and bullies above your level. There's plenty of them. I allowed them to get to me too much, and I didn't trust God's timing and His plan. And He flicked me on the forehead a couple times, and fortunately, I think he took inventory of my deficits. Hey, he's got Tourette's. He's Greek. He's an idiot. Let's just get his attention. So he got my attention twice, and so those were the two periods of my career where I really was like, oh man, what am I doing?
So how did you get it back? You
So during those
seeked
four,
help, right?
well, number one, I went to God and said, God, I'm sorry for being prideful. Pride before a fall, Bible says, and I was pissed off at my bosses and thought I knew better, and whether or not I did, it doesn't matter because they were my bosses. Um, and that was the first thing. The second thing was mental rehab of a lot of rest. I literally wrote my second book during my rehab, so that was like a mental rehab of get learning. I was writing like 50 minutes a day, then 20 minutes a day, then half an hour a day, then before you know it, I was writing 12 hours a day when I came back. Um, so there was a lot of that, and humbling myself and realigning my priorities with my wife and my daughters, and all that. It's a whole process, and that's kind of how I got it back. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go back healthy. I'm going to finish strong, and I didn't want to rob myself of the joy of the job. It was me. Yes, were they terrible bosses? Absolutely, on all counts and by many other people's experiences. But it was on me to have allowed it to affect me the way I did. So I had to get myself out of it. And to me, I didn't want to lose the fire service before I was ready. And for me, the age was 50 years old. In California, at least, you can retire at 50 years old. And I was 48, and I was like, I got 2 years. I can do 2 more years. I can do this. So
Yeah. Audience question. Jay Vandenberg's asking, Chief, what do you think the best position in the fire service is, and why?
battalion chief, and I'll tell you why. Because I was an engineer. I was a firefighter, engineer, captain, and battalion chief. And every rank we say what? Oh, I love being a firefighter, best job in the fire service. Engineer, I love driving the rig. I love freaking that next level senior man kind of thing. Officer, I am in charge of my crew. It's great. I'm not a chief. I don't have to deal with management, go down to headquarters. Battalion chief, you know what? Phenomenal. You get to be your own chief for a day or two, and you get to mentor people. It's the first level where you're leading other leaders, and you can develop leaders. Above that level, crickets. You never hear, oh, it's the best job. I've never seen somebody self-demote from battalion chief, but I've seen plenty of people self-demote from assistant chief, division chief, deputy chief, and fire chief. Because as you go up the chain, it's more bureaucratic and less operational. It's more about politics and less about people. And the battalion chief to me is the pinnacle of that, where you get to, I mean, they let me, these people were actually let me run a battalion 10 times a month. It was unbelievable. I had my own vehicle. I had 40 firefighters. I had 11 companies. I had a cell phone, and I had all the support I ever needed in the world logistically. And I got to just do what I was doing in 1972 with my Tonka trucks, but actual size. And that's how it felt every single freaking day. And but even as good as that was, people would say, well, didn't you miss going in the fires as a company officer? Okay, sure, a little bit. But you know what I got more joy out of? Watching them kick ass from the sidelines. Because to me, I was now the head coach. I put the headset on. I'm the head coach. I'm calling the plays. But where's a good head coach earn their money? Not on Sunday, before kickoff. Getting the team ready, watching game film, picking the right people, training them, mentoring them, growing them, and building that team that can execute the game plan. And then you tweak and adjust for the particular team you're going to face this Sunday. That team might be a commercial structure fire. That team might be an apartment fire, might be a house fire, might be a Mayday. But you've gotten them ready. And I got such immense joy from that feeling of watching them on El Camino, on watching them on these fires and just kick ass and see them high five each other and see them just feel this sense of joy of teamwork. That to me was better than me being on a nozzle any day of the week. That was just me though. So that's my answer.
All right. I love it. If you wanted to give someone a sense of how fire service culture should work by meeting one person, who would it be? With us, gone, anyone in the history of the fire service.
Definitely Brunacini. He embodied that tradition, that old school grandpa, have a cup of coffee, sit at his feet and soak up his wisdom. And we don't have that anymore, not because they're not there. They've just retired. You have to go to FDIC to talk to John Norman. to talk to a lot of the guys we've talked about tonight. And so, but they used to be in the firehouses. The Brunos of the world used to be everywhere, and now they're kind of nowhere, and they're not even Chiefs anymore. And it's sad to me because Bruno Cini embodied the culture because he was a big family person. Both of his
I think we lost him there for a second. Uh-oh. We'll try to get him back here. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, what a great answer. I think, I can't remember if we were in the green room or if we were here in front of you guys, but we were talking a lot about Brunissini, and there's so much foundational culture that my generation has that a lot of them don't even know who Brunissini is. So it's something else. Violated blue card rules. We'll get him back here. Sorry, I'm just taking notes for when we lost him. Hopefully we get him back here in a second. Computer went out. Uh-oh. He'll try on his phone. I'm just going to send him the link real quick. Yeah, I know. Thanks, Jay. Usually I'm pretty good about segues and stuff, but I mean, like I don't want to steal him talking about Bruno because like he actually interacted with him and was a true mentor to him, and I just know of him from my exposure to the things that he believed in customer service and treating people right, and it's funny because people don't really all we don't talk about Bruno, right? Different Bruno. Yeah, we'll get him back here in a sec. He's gonna try to get on his phone. His computer died, so that's you can't win with technology. On a side note, aside from my lip hair and my face, some big things happening in the Lake County fire world in terms of networking are coming very soon. I'm not going to steal a total announcement from some of my fellow brothers, but a new way to connect here in Lake County, Illinois, is coming very, very, very soon, if not already. So be paying attention to that. Yeah, I know, Jay, that technology makes our lives easier, but this wouldn't exist without, the technology and the internet. But yeah, Mike, networking, big stuff coming. Oh, man. All right, he's almost back. If I could learn how to read, Maybe that would help, so I get my right codes in. New things coming in Lake County that I'd love, Jay. Tell me over lunch. It's a date. That almost, I mean, it sounds kind of lame if I say it that way, but you know the deal. Awesome people making advances on mental health benefit for firefighters. I love that because a lot of people need that in more ways than one. Networking right together, like we talk about, trying to get everyone to be together on things, but then having other resources for mental health obviously is very important. Well, hopefully I don't got to do a new meeting because I got to totally 180 everything. Also, real quick, Dad, if you are in here, absolutely 100%, absolutely 100%, absolutely 100%, absolutely 100%, absolutely 100%, absolutely 100%. Have fun passing out. I don't know if he's in here, but apparently I got catchphrases. Oh, man. I really hope I didn't mess this up. Missed meet video call. Uh-oh. What did I do here? It's on meet. All right, hang out. I think you can still hear me. All right, we're getting it back. We're getting it back. And now, back to Leanhart. Oh. Well. Maybe he'll listen later, but you're right. Oh, come on. Maybe I do got to pay for Zoom one of these days, after all. Chief, congrats on your retirement announcement. Well, not announcement, but maybe I just spilled the beans on that. I probably shouldn't have done that. I don't realize the audience that I have sometimes. But either way, incoming video meet call. Oh, shoot. All right, hold on. Yeah, I got to figure out how to get you on my computer. I don't know.
Sorry, brother.
No, it's okay.
My computer, I think what happened is shut down because it overheated.
Oh.
I'm having a technical problem.
Yeah. So I think I opened up a new Google Meeting or whatever. I think I don't know if there's a way for you to.
Did you email it to me?
No. Whatever I texted you, that link should just go right to your phone.
That's what got us this.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
When I hit call, we got this.
That's so weird. All right, hold on. Let me. Maybe it'll. What was the email again that you had? Hold on, I got it. Well.
info@trainedfirefighters.com.
Let's see if that works. What's the meeting that this one's in? Like, I sent you whatever code is on my computer, but...
Yeah, I know. I think it's because I'm calling from my phone, maybe.
Oh, see if that.
Did you email it to me?
Yeah, I emailed it to you.
Let me see. Join call. I'm gonna end this call first.
Okay, I'll end it.
Try the other one.
All right. Man. Am I going to have to go to Zoom? I hope not. I don't even know how to do that. Nothing but technical difficulties. Send video. What the hell, man? Hey, I don't know what's going on with this. Yeah, I'll close out with my group over here, and then yeah. Hold on one sec, everyone. I'll be right back. All right, yeah. So we straight up lost him, and we can't get him back. So that's it for the episode here. We don't really know how to fix it. For some reason, the him trying to get back in here goes right back to my phone, and we can't figure it out. So, that's going to be a wrap for this episode. Maybe we'll get him back on again to kind of finish these things up. But I appreciate you guys listening. He also says he appreciates you guys listening, and yeah, man, it's weird ending by myself here. It's not the norm. So yeah, and I got a big line through my face, so we're just kind of coming on one side or the other. Either way, for those of you still live in here, yeah, I appreciate you guys listening. Cool. I'm going to have to end it right there. So have a nice night. We'll see you in the next one. I got one coming up next week, so just check on Facebook, and you can kind of keep track of my schedule. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.